But one of the most important things I did for my sanity was in 2010 when I removed comments from the site. No more comments. Because the rationale being that my contact information is very easily accessible, and the people who really have something pressing and intelligent to say are going to reach out and do it directly and not anonymously and engage in a conversation if they choose. And the people who sort of just siphon creative energy and time with empty comments are going to go away. And sure enough, that's what happened. And so right now, I get a lot of sort of feedback from readers that most of it is not something that warrants a discussion, but every once in a while, because some of these people have now been with the site for, 2, 3, 6, 8 years, I would get things that are good recommendations and pointers and things that I wasn't aware of. And because I spend a lot of time offline, most of the things that I write about come from archives and old books and things that are sort of off the internet. And it's so interesting, this sort of self-selective chain of influence and inspiration that someone who happens to be, a Raymond Chandler fan and read a letter that I wrote about tells me about some unpublished poem or something like this. So.
Leandra, how about you?
I think the experience for me is a lot more direct. The comments that posts receive are a direct result of how popular, important, interesting, or uninteresting a post was. And I guess the shares on Facebook and Twitter, because I sort of gauge those metrics too. But I wholly sympathize with Maria's point about removing the commenting forum, but I have found in the last year and a half that so many of the comments on my site are so brilliant. And the number one piece of advice my dad has always given me is that being smart is not about how much you know, it's about the people you surround yourself with. And so to be surrounded by these millions of brilliant girls that are interested in fashion but also want to tap into this area of something that they haven't yet is just, it's very interesting and humbling for me to see. I feel happy that I can elicit these reactions from people.
And if I may ask, just very curious, how do you, when you see the metrics on what's more popular and what isn't, do you use that to change what you write about? Do you use it to hone what you write about, or does it not factor in at all?
It really depends on the kind of post. If it was a test post, I was wondering if I, recall the Facebook honesty box and summon my readers to share an honest story about themselves, and that does really well. I'm like, oh, this, we are all generation Yers, we are narcissists, they want to be talking about themselves, I'm going to keep going with this. Versus a story about a fashion trend that I really love and taking it back to the genesis of the trend that may not garner as many results, but to me is a very important and integral part of the site. I won't change that.
I think Humans of New York has a slightly more interesting layer to all this, because the comments aren't on me, they're on strangers that I've interacted with in the streets. And so, that's kind of a very delicate balance that I've got to walk, is that I find somebody on the street, take their photo, and then show it to 700,000 people that night, which, who could potentially tee off on them. And one thing that I've done is kind of tried to establish a culture on Honey, which is I don't make fun of people. I keep the tone very supportive and very affirming, and so I think mean people kind of get bored and move on. And the second thing is I only keep the conversation on Facebook, because I think anonymity is the scourge of the internet. If you
completely agree.
If you live, and I hate people defend it like, oh, I need to be protected to have my thoughts. You live in America. Like, if you live in Iran, and you need to, hide your identity, I understand that. But, if you're using anonymity in America, most of the time it's to say something nasty on the internet. And so, it's, I keep the conversation on Facebook, which has helped, immensely, because it's amazing that when somebody's face and name are next to a comment, how much nicer they are.